I want to bring in Michael Smerconish, who joins us now with his thoughts on this tumultuous week. Michael, if I could just start with this news that Evan Corcoran, Trump's lawyer, is formally departing the team, possibly a key witness in the Mar-a-Lago case. That can't be good for any client who's sort of watching their lawyer now leave and also potentially a prosecutor's witness. I mean, what are your thoughts here?
I've always thought that the Mar-a-Lago case was the most straightforward and posed the most legal peril for former President Trump if it should ever get to trial. Among the four indictments that he's currently facing, it just seemed to me, Rahel, to be the most clear-cut because they have the videotaped evidence. They also have apparently a number of text communications that are damning of the former president. The issue that you're raising is a reminder to me of the extraordinary nature of this case because they were able to pierce the attorney-client privilege. And so I'm not surprised that Corcoran would leave. I don't know how, frankly, he could stay. But I've always thought that that issue is probably the appellate issue for Trump, but that he ought to be concerned if that case ever gets to trial.
Well, one thing that does appear to be going to trial is this hush money case, which is set to begin on Monday with jury selection. Michael, you know, one thing we've heard from Republican strategists, including on this very program within the hour, is that that's not a serious case politically damaging. It's not seriously politically damaging for Trump. Do you think they are underestimating this trial, or what do you think?
It ties into your earlier comment about the fact that OJ Simpson has just passed, and that really was the trial of the century. You know, we had the Lindbergh baby kidnapping case in the 30s. That was Bruno Hauptmann on trial. There were no cameras. When OJ was on trial in the mid-90s, everybody watched. It's been estimated that 150 million people watched that verdict came in. I was one of them. Rahel, it's probably before your time. I know exactly where I was and who was around me at the time. And I think this case would be like that if there were cameras, but there aren't. So the intangible here is how closely will people follow it when we have to rely on real-time reporting from individuals who are in the courtroom via probably social media. And I just don't know. I know that the polling data says that many of his supporters, maybe as many as a quarter, say, well, if he's ever convicted, then I couldn't stick with him. I don't know if that's true. It depends how this is perceived in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point. I mean, the one caveat is that we do expect cameras to be in the Fulton County courthouse if that case ever goes to trial. But of course, that's a big question mark because of all of the motions there. You know, Michael, let's turn to OJ. I did want to get your thoughts on that. It's been really fascinating to watch some of the reactions. Obviously, OJ was an extremely controversial figure, and even in his death, sparking a lot of conversation. What do you think his legacy and his life revealed about the U.S.?
Man, I remember being so upset when that verdict came in because I believed him to be a double murderer, and I still today believe that to be the case. I was so angry that I really couldn't understand, and I don't know that I really wanted to understand what enabled, if it were jury nullification, for that verdict to come in. And I get it now in retrospect, having done a lot of reading on this, watched a number of documentaries, that it just became so much larger than OJ. For people of color in Los Angeles at that time and the way in which they perceived the LAPD having treated their community and, of course, the Rodney King situation, he became a symbol of all that. And it was an opportunity for, this is probably a bad word choice, but a leveling of the playing surface. And, you know, to the detriment of the Goldman and Brown families. So the other legacy, I think, Rahel, is this. I'm a big believer that there ought to be cameras anywhere the public's business is being done. And one of the setbacks for the movement of having cameras in courtrooms was the OJ case, because the perception has been, well, that's what it gets you. No, this was the aberrant case. The judge in this case, Judge Ito, lost control of the courtroom. But this is not what every televised trial would be like. And I wish the Trump trial would be televised.
You know, it's so interesting, Michael. It was a little before my time, but not so much because I was young. I was quite young. I'm not going to say my age right here, but I do remember. I remember people talking about it, and what I remember more is the pop cultural references that the case took on for decades. I was talking yesterday with Areva Martin, Jay-Z's latest album, 444. He talks about the story of OJ. That's the name of the song, and he talks about how Race does not transcend wealth. You know, if you are black in America, you are black in America. But let me circle back, Michael, because how do you think the OJ case changed sort of court TV and just the public demand or public fascination with watching trials?
Funny that you should ask, because on my radio show today, our colleague Jeffrey Toobin was a guest of mine. He was in the courtroom every other day. He split his courtroom pass with another journalist, and by a coin toss, Jeffrey was in the room when the OJ verdict came in. And Rahel, he said to me today, do you know that at the time of the OJ trial, there were not legal analysts on the payroll of the cable affiliates? And like, look now, we know the personalities who show up on CNN and on the different affiliates because it's become so much an accepted and necessary part of our culture. OJ, you know, came out of the blue and changed forever, I think, the whole way in which the legal system gets covered and by whom.
Yeah, that is so interesting. It's funny, Michael, not funny, but I was watching a documentary last night about OJ just to sort of refresh my memory. And a Jeffrey Toobin, a young Jeffrey Toobin was there. And so it was an interesting sort of walk down memory lane. Let me ask before I let you go, Michael, just in terms of the former president and the type of coverage that he commands because of all of these trials and sort of the implications of that in an election year.
So I don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, because this trial is going to take weeks. I don't think that the judge sits on Wednesdays. I mean, is this going to be a situation where Monday and Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, Donald Trump is wedded to that courtroom because he's got to be there, and then he's going to step out and face a bank of reporters, and on Wednesday he'll travel somewhere, and we are entering yet another area of what do they say, uncharted waters. I mean, we don't know what this is going to look like. We really don't know, because we've never been here before. He's run very much a campaign against what he believes is this persecution, and it did well for him among Republican voters. But this is now general election season because he's the presumptive nominee. So I don't know what it looks like. I just know that come Monday, like, the dynamic is about to change again.
Yeah, and this could be a trial that lasts 8 weeks, as you pointed out, not in a session on Wednesday, but 8 weeks nonetheless. A lot to watch.
Right.
Michael Smerconish, we always appreciate you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.